Good afternoon. I'm Desi DeLarge, Omicron Lambda Omega chapter member and team member for Target 4, the Arts Career Focus, up close and personal. The arts. Yes, it does make life eminently worth living. The arts is all its varied forms, improves the quality of life and living for all in excellence. Omicron Lambda Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated is implementing international program Target 4, the arts with enthusiasm while exemplifying excellence through sustainable service. The artsy girls of OLQ have accepted our charge to showcase talent in the visual and performing arts. Celebrate the contributions of African American artists and highlight the artists and artworks of the Harlem Renaissance and Black arts movement. Welcome to the arts on a Sunday afternoon, as we focus on successful individuals who have chosen careers in the arts field. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our career focus, up close and personal, featuring Fatima Shaik. It is my pleasure to introduce our special guest for the afternoon. Fatima Shaik was born in historic 7th Ward of New Orleans and bred on the oral histories told by her Creole family and neighbors. A former assistant professor at St. Peter's University, New Jersey. She worked for more than a decade as a reporter and editor for daily news outlets. Her articles have appeared in the New York Times, The Root, and in These Times. Shaik is a trustee of PEN America and former board member of the Writers' Room in New York City. She is the author of 6 books of fiction. Economy Hall is her first nonfiction work. Hi, Fatima.
Hi, Desi. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good, good. Nice to
Great,
see you.
great. So my first question to you is, what is an author? Can you explain to our viewers?
Sure. An author is a person who writes, basically, who makes a profession of writing. Some people like to write, which is wonderful. They write in their journals, they write letters, they write things for their offices, you know. But authors decide to write, literary authors actually, decide to write something about the culture. They'll look at the culture either thematically, you know, like talking about race or life or love, or you know, or they'll write something maybe about a person, about their person, a memoir. There are different types of writing, but an author is basically someone who dedicates their life to writing.
Great. What educational preparation is required to be an author?
Well, that these days you would want to get a college education and maybe graduate school. However, being a writer is something that you can decide to do at any point any point in your life. You can decide when you're in grammar school or high school that I want to be an author, and you can start teaching yourself. You can just start reading. The best way to become an author is to start reading good writers. You know, like you might want to read Zora Neale Hurston or James Baldwin or Arna Bonton. There are lots of writers, like you mentioned in the Harlem Renaissance, that are good starting points, Langston Hughes. And you can train yourself. You can look at the way that they write. And then when you're ready to take it into a profession, then you might want to get professional training about how the business is run.
Okay. Why did you select this career as an author? Can you give us a...
Well, I always wanted to write. Probably I've been writing since about the 3rd or 4th grade, writing little things like journals and writing poetry. And my mother and aunts used to write poetry, so I followed them. And they encouraged me to take this as a career. I found it to be very personally satisfying, as well as something I could do for a living.
Great, great. And what is a typical day for you in your career?
Well, there are different kinds of typical days. Most authors don't make a lot of money when they start off, or maybe ever. So it's
Right.
really a vocation. you know.
Yeah.
But so you'll have a job. So what I would combined with my writing was a job as a teacher. So I taught in a university for a long time. So my typical day in a university would be to get up, teach for a few hours, study about what I was going to teach, and then I would go off to a place where I could write. I write at the writers' room in New York.
Mhm.
And New York Writers' Room is a place where other authors gather. It's like going to a big library where nobody speaks and you can just sit down there and write, and you don't talk to anybody else. You just come in there to write. So it's a quiet place, but you're in the company of other people doing the same thing.
Oh,
So that would be a typical day to me.
mhm. Okay. Um, how has work setting been changed and adapted to COVID now?
Well, for me, I stopped going to the writers' room for a good while, and then they put in COVID precautions where people had to wear a mask and sit distance away from each other, and time so that the room could probably hold about 40 or 50 people, and they kept it to maybe 10 people at a time. So you would so that changed things. But in terms of what I do, a lot of writing is thinking too. About thinking. So you're not always just sitting at the desk. You're writing while you're walking, you're writing while you're exercising, you're thinking about what the next thing that you're going to write about is. What is this character going to do in your story? So you're thinking about that. So it didn't change my life a lot.
Mhm.
It changed my teaching career because some of my teaching began online. I started doing that online, but that's really the only effects that it had on me.
Oh, okay. What is the most challenging thing about your career?
The most challenging thing is probably deciding among ideas. The idea that we always have a person when you sit down. One thing writers do is they sit in quiet places, as I said, like a library, a similar place.
Mhm.
And what happens when you sit with yourself? A lot of times you'll notice this yourself that you get lots of ideas, right?
Right,
So
right.
your mind just starts spinning one place to another.
Mhm.
The hardest thing for a writer is to decide which one of those ideas is the most important one to focus on,
Mhm.
and then to carry that idea out to its conclusion without sort of drifting off into another idea. I think that's the hardest part.
Oh, okay,
Mhm.
okay. Um, now, could you let us know what is the most rewarding thing about your career? What's most
Well,
rewarding?
it's almost the same thing, actually. The reward is in the doing. For writers, the reward is in
Right.
the doing. It's nice to have a book out. I love having a book out and seeing it and having it in my hands. But
Mhm.
just about the time when I've gotten a book out, I'm ready to start another book if I haven't started one already. Um, the best part of it to me is sort of probing my own ideas. Reflecting them against other writers, other books that have been written, and
Mhm.
sort of seeing where they're placed in the universe.
Okay. Um, are there any resources you could share for those interested in pursuing this career? Any
Yeah,
resources about
they're
you?
well, as I said, the first resource that you should have is just find writers that you like. Go to the library, talk to librarians, tell them what sorts of things are you interested in. Are you interested in fashion? Are you interested in animals? Are you interested in love stories? Ask the librarian to point you in the direction of these kinds of writers who would do this kinds of work. Start reading. After you've read a little bit and you start writing your own poetry or your own short stories, there are places like Writers Market. Writers Market is it's a sort of encyclopedic book of of places where you can send your writing. So they'll say, here's where you can send your poetry, and you basically do it. You'd send an email to a person, say, I
Oh,
wrote a poem. This is the first poem I'm trying to publish. Would you consider it? And you see whether you get an answer back from what writers have to do is have a thick skin. I know somebody who had 80 rejections. She took a picture of it and she put it on social media, right?
mhm.
All of her rejections lined up across the floor, So if somebody doesn't like it, that's okay. If they give you good suggestions, that's best, right? If
Mhm.
they don't particularly care for it, but they tell you, well, this would be better if you thought about this person a little bit differently, or if you change the rhyming scheme to this poem. You
Mhm.
take their advice and you think about it. Now, sometimes people will give you bad advice, but if you hear it
Mhm.
from enough people telling you the same thing, that's probably something you should focus on. So writer's market, or just go to the library. What I like to do is go to the library or the bookstore and just go through the shelves, writing books. I always pick up writing books and just see what the new thing is. It's usually the same old thing, which is sit down and write. That's the difference between writers and non-writers. Writers go there and they just sit down and they write.
And they're right. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our viewers?
Well, I think I'll tell you what, I think that this is a wonderful career because it allows you to express yourself. As I said, it's not a career that you're going to make money off of right off the bat. You have to test your ideas against other people who are selling their books or
Mhm.
writing their stories. But because you're already fulfilled in what you're doing, the money doesn't mean anything. And
Oh,
if it does come, because you're going to make your money somewhere else, you just have to make it somewhere else.
somewhere
But
else.
if it does come and it comes good, it's the icing on the cake.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. This was fabulous.
Thank you, Desi.
And it's so great to see you. And I sure hope that our viewers have learned a lot from you, and we appreciate you doing this with us.
It's my pleasure. It
Okay,
really is.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.